All right,
We're good to go.
got it. All good.
Good to
Okay,
go.
so this project, FUDR has a long history of operating up in the northern section of the watershed up in Delaware County and the tailwaters below the Cannonsville Pacton reservoirs. And a number of years ago, we started to expand our horizons and work our way
I can feel it.
work our way down into Sullivan County and gain some familiarity there. It was actually Steve Schwartz, who I think is on the call still, that for a long time used to talk to me about how the Neversink is so important and it needs some organizing, and it's never really had a comprehensive plan from top to bottom. And that took a while to penetrate, but eventually the federal Delaware River program came around, enacted in 2017, I believe, and it had a grant program. And we and other organizations on this call have been the beneficiaries of that grant program since its inception. And one of those projects it funded was this project. And it was actually Heather Jaxie at the Sullivan County Planning Department who was the primary applicant and the recipient. And then in partner, Heather reached out and has worked with FUDR, Trout Unlimited, and Natural Lands as partners on the project. And we're pretty excited about, having gone through, and Jillian, again, we'll get into more details, but we started this, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it's taken this long to do everything you have to do to put a watershed plan together. What the plan is not is creating any new regulatory approaches, laws, ordinances, telling people what to do. It's strictly a kind of a blueprint for the future management of water resources in the Neversink watershed. It relies on voluntarism and collaboration, and I'm glad we have Stephen from the planning board. I'd be interested in his thoughts about, how in his world, how all this stuff is relevant. But, this is a plan that sort of covers all the jurisdiction, the municipalities and municipal jurisdictions in the watershed, which is, something we feel like you have to do if you're thinking about watershed management. You're thinking about the whole watershed and how it all comes together and intersects and relies on all its various parts. And so we hope that this is a document that can be referenced when decisions are made about water resource management or discussion is needed. We can go back to it and say, hey, yeah, we talked about that stuff. It's in the plan here. Let's see what the plan says. And we hope that can go, could go on year in and year out. And we'll adjust the plan and as needed. And then a critical part of it, for those of you who have seen this already, is one of the appendices, I think, is a list of projects that we identified. We went from town to town, basically, and we talked to people, elected officials and highway people and planning board people. And we identified at the most granular level where the priority projects are for the folks that are sort of in the day-to-day activity of managing water in the Neversink watershed in one way or another. And so, that list is fluid and evolving and will change, but it attempts to prioritize. And then, of course, in its probably its most important thing it will turn on is, can we find the funding to implement these projects? And so we hope to work, so we hope this document will point us to and help us find the necessary funding. And the price tag, of course, is big. And it's going to be an effort to just go, it's never going to come to an end. But we hope to start chipping away at these projects once this plan is finalized. And then, I think some of the final steps here will be, we're going to go, after we do this, we get the final round of comments, and Jillian will give you that timeline. We'll go back to the municipalities and talk to them. I'm scheduling a meeting with the county legislature, Sullivan County legislature, to make a presentation on the plan probably later in the summer. And then off we go. We're going to rely on watershed practitioners and the implementers to use it as a reference document, and we hope it makes a difference. So, with that, thank you, Jillian, for all your hard work. It's been a slog and it's not always been easy. Jillian is a professional meeting scheduler, among many other things now. And It's just some of this just basic, sort of basic level organizing things that have to get done to get to move this thing, or it can really can be a drag sometimes. So Jillian's hung in there and was able to get us this close to the finish line. So with that, Jillian, I'll turn it over to you, and you can, I guess you're going to share your screen and kind of walk through. We don't feel like you have to comment on this now. We hope that some of you have read it. Some of you have writing parts in it. And I think one thing is, one way to, it's 100 pages or something, and maybe, you know, one piece of advice might be, if you have a particular area of expertise or interest, that you focus in on that. And it's you can do that with a plan like this, I think. And then you can, Jillian will tell you how to submit comments later, how to do that. So go ahead, Jillian.
Thank you, Jeff. Yes, so as Jeff said, for the past 2 years, I've been working on this Neversink Watershed Management Plan. So it is fun to finally be in the finale of it. I'm going for home plate here. I have a presentation set up, and today I'm gonna discuss with you basically a little bit of background information, how we ended up where we are today with the plan, and kind of give you some information on the contents of the plan. So give me one moment. I'm gonna share my screen. Why am I not seeing the ability to share my screen? There we are. All right, so we'll dive right in. The Neversink Watershed Management Plan, or the NWMP for short. Just to give everybody an idea, kind of localize everybody, get everybody to an understanding of where the Neversink watershed is within New York. This is the map here. You can see we have the Upper Delaware River watershed. It's a bit bigger, just kind of to give you an idea where the Neversink sits. Neversink will be outlined in the pink, and as you can see, it starts in Ulster County, moves through Sullivan County, and then exits Orange County. There's a very small portion at the very bottom here that does cross the state line into the state of New Jersey. However, this plan is only going to be covering New York. It will not be covering this smaller portion in Jersey. And then also, to give you another idea, this will just kind of give you a visual of where the watershed sits right here within the state of New York. So some background information. Jeff did give a little bit of background information, so I'll just go a little bit more in depth. Back in 2022, Sullivan County was awarded a federal grant to develop a watershed management plan for the Neversink, hence the NWMP. They had reached out to us, Friends of the Upper Delaware River, Trout Unlimited, and Natural Lands to help assist with certain different aspects. Friends of the Upper Delaware River, we did a lot of organizing of meetings, presenting meetings, writing the plan. Trout Unlimited did tons of data gathering for us, as well as writing the plan. Same with Natural Lands, they wrote an entire chapter on open space and also helped with some public meetings. And then we also did have numerous other conservation partners that you will see a little bit later on in this presentation who joined us to be a part of the steering committee. So different individuals that are focused in on a certain area of expertise. They were able to read certain chapters and kind of help us fine tune that. For instance, Brent, who had introduced himself earlier, he was a big part of it, lots of other people. So what is the NWMP? It's a non-regulatory guidance document that profiles the entire New York portion of the watershed, of the Neversink watershed. It outlines management goals and recommendations and identifies pilot sites for project implementation. So developing the NWMP, what went into developing it? Well, we did a couple rounds of public meetings. We completed, this will be our very last meeting, but we completed 4 series of public outreach meetings. Our first round was 3 virtual meetings, and they were very educationally based. Basics of watersheds, basics of, what is a river, how does a river function, what's erosion, anything that would come up like that. We had and all of those meetings were recorded, and they can be found on our website. I can give you that information a little bit later on as well. And then our second round of public meetings were in person. There was 3 meetings again. One meeting was done in one day. There was an afternoon and an evening meeting. And those were very interactive meetings. The first two were held at the Ethelbert Public Library, that's in Monticello. And at that meeting, we had really big maps and we set them out on the table. And it was, we asked the community members if they would, we had a bunch of stickers. We would ask them if they would please put down places of concern, places that they would like to stay in open space, so a place to preserve. Maybe it was an area that they've fished in for their whole life. Maybe it's an area that is, threatened for development or overdevelopment. It could have also been just an area that was, close to maybe other land that they'd like to see expand. So it's a larger area perhaps to, conserve. And the other thing we asked individuals to do was also point out any issues that they saw within their community, any real problem areas. So we had some individuals pinpoint areas that flooded all the time. Perhaps they might not have known that the area was flooding due to a culvert that was failing, but they knew that, hey, this road's always flooded whenever there's a major, storm event, things of that nature. And it didn't only have to be culverts. That's just the first one that popped to my mind. Our next round of public meetings was actually just one meeting. It was virtual. It was held a little bit later on. And I go more in depth with these meetings in the next few slides. But that was to develop the vision statement and the goals of the Neversink Watershed Management Plan. Our last round, which is the round that we are currently in, is two meetings. We had an in-person meeting on the 2nd, so about a week and a half ago. And that was again at the Ethelbert Public Library. And it was to do what we're doing today. I actually gave the exact same presentation and we just took some comments and let people kind of discuss things with us. We went over the project list. So same meeting that we're having today, it was just done in person. So not only did we complete public meetings, but we also went around, it was Jeff, myself, Heather, and Tracy. We went around to each municipality within the watershed and met with their officials, highway superintendents, the supervisors, mayors, engineers, you name it. We met with anybody that was, wanted to sit in on these meetings with us. And that was over the whole summer and into the fall of 2023. From there, we worked on developing a draft. We reviewed it with our steering committee. That was a few months long it took to finally get to where the draft we have today that could be found on our website as well. We had our review meetings. Our next step will be to finalize if there are any comments that come in after this meeting. And then hopefully by the end of this month, we will have a completed plan that will be available for viewing. So those 4 rounds of public outreach meetings, I'm going to describe to you all the rounds that we went through in a little bit more detail. This is really where we got a lot of information for the plan. So our recruitment, we did a whole lot to try to get as many people as possible. Our goal was to have at least 50 participants at each meeting. Some of our meetings hit that goal, some of them didn't, but we had great participation with the individuals who did come. And even afterwards, people who watched our recordings of the meetings, we had people who sent in comments and emails. But just to give you an idea of how we did some outreach, we placed notices within local newspapers, and everything that we did was at least 2 weeks in advance, if not a month in advance. We tried to really get the information out there to recruit as many people as possible. But we did, we put ads in local newspapers. We utilized social media platforms, multiple ones, multiple posts we made, shared stories. We also did press releases. We did email blasts to a bunch of different, we did FUDR's mailing list. I know a couple other people reached out and sent some things to their mailing lists as well. And if you are interested in viewing any of these meetings, if you go to our website here and just / with documents, you'll be able to find them. You can also just go to FUDR.org and you'll find a drop down for Neversink and click away. There's tons of information in there. All right, so round 1 of our public meetings was an introduction to the Neversink Watershed Management Plan. They were conducted over the winter of 2023. 3 meetings it consists of. They were all virtual. It's kind of winter months. We wish they could be in person, but you can't predict what what road conditions will be like. So our very first meeting is what is a watershed management plan and why do we need one? We had a really great turnout for our very first meeting. As you could see, we had 71 participants. And in this meeting, we really just defined what is a watershed. Basically you have a peak when water flows one way, water flows this way, wherever it lands, that'll kind of create your watershed. We did real basics. The next was the basics of stream dynamics. Again, great participation on that, 65 people showed up for that meeting. Again, it was really basic information on streams, how they function, how is a stream classified, how do streams change over time, what affects a stream, went into different species that could be found within the Neversink River and different streams. And then our third, to wrap up that first round, was flooding, changing water trends, and the economic recreational benefits of stream protection and restoration. This was still, again, some basics. It gave a lot of history and why a plan was needed in this area for the Neversink. It gave a lot of information on, changing weather trends, so what we could possibly maybe see for the future. And then also, of course, the recreational benefits that the river and, basically all the watershed brings into the towns and the other areas, cities, villages, hamlets, everywhere. So our second round was water body characterization, and this was May and June of 2023. These were our very interactive meetings. Our first set from here, the fourth and fifth meeting, they were the ones that were conducted in the afternoon and the evening on the same day at Ethelbert. It was open space prevention and stream project identification. So again, we had those big maps in, we had individuals pinpoint areas that they want to see preserved, and then we had them pinpoint areas where there's possibly an issue, maybe a project that we could help get funding for, or maybe rectify in another way. The third meeting that we had in that round was held at SUNY Sullivan, and it was developing a vision for the Neversink watershed. So this is kind of foreshadowing for the next public meeting that we had a few months later, but we needed to really collect all the data and information from these meetings in order to create the vision statement and some other things. At this meeting, we approached it a little differently. We had what is called a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. There was an online, that online study was conducted, and from there we took all that feedback, all that data, and we put them up on some big pieces of paper, hung them around the room, and we asked participants to, maybe they only had one thing that they were interested in, maybe it was just threats, or maybe it was just strengths, but we asked participants to go around and give us input on each one of those 4 categories. And if their input was already there, we asked them to please check mark it so we could see what was the most important, what was the least important, what was something that totally threw us off course that we weren't expecting people to write in about. But these 2 meetings, we collected a ton of data from the public, a lot of input, and that really helped us shape some chapters in the Neversink in the plan. So round 3, as you can see, it was a couple months later from the previous ones, but this round was to further develop the vision statement, goals, strategies, and actions. As you can see, it was done in November, so not too long ago from here. This was a virtual meeting. So we collected all of that data, and then we got back together with our steering committee members and our authors, and we said, hey, this is what we collected. How do we come up with, some main goals that we want for this? How do we come up with a solid vision statement? What is the vision for the future? So we developed that within this meeting. Still had some refinement afterwards, but that was a nitty-gritty for this meeting. Which brings us to our round 4, our final round of meetings, which is just draft reviews. As I stated before, our first meeting for this round was conducted on the May 2nd, and that was at Ethelbert again. It was the same meeting same presentation as this. We got some feedback, some really great information from that. We were able to add some little tidbits in here and there throughout the plan that we might have been missing. Another thing that's great to note, we had people who had commented, hey, I think a comma is missing here. So it might not have been necessarily a huge influx of information that people gave us, but we did have people who, were able to pinpoint we missed a capital letter or something of that nature. We did also have individuals who said, hey, I think this would be a good idea to add something like this. Or they looked at the project list and said, hey, I see a potential project that isn't on there. Can we add it? So we were able to give out our emails so we can receive that information if needed. Same goes for today's meeting. Once we're done, hopefully you've been able to view the plan. If not, it is up on our website. We're still taking comments, and it could be something as small as, I think, there's an extra letter here, or, hey, here's a fact that's completely missing, or something of that nature. And all of the comments we do bring back and review and make sure they are fitting for the plan. But yeah, so those are our 4 rounds, which brings us to our next rounds of meetings that we conducted, which was our municipal meetings. This is the watershed outline here for the Neversink watershed. Viewed that a little earlier, but we reached out to all 12 municipalities, starting from Ulster County, going through Sullivan and Orange. Over here, you can see in Ulster County, we have the town of Shandaken, I'm sorry about that, town of Denning. In Sullivan, we have the town of Neversink, Fallsburg, village of Woodridge and Monticello, town of Thompson, town of Forestburg, town of Mamakating, and village of Westboro. And then in Orange County, down here, we have the town of Deer Park and the city of Port Jervis. For these meetings, we met with municipal leaders and sat down with those maps that we had from those very interactive second round of public meetings. And we said, hey, this is what your people are saying is going on in this town, in your city, in your village. Can you tell us any more information? Is there an issue relating to this? Or, what's going on here? Why have so many people brought attention to this? Collected tons of data from these municipal meetings. And we still are collecting data from the municipal meetings. From these municipal meetings, we did create a project list, as Jeff did state. It is one of our attachments in the plan towards the end. And it's a forever growing project list. Our goal with that list was to kind of just get a basic start and grow from there. Hopefully within the next few years, we're able to cross off a bunch of those and say, hey, we got those projects completed. And hopefully more projects come in that we can potentially find funding for, or resources or help guide, the municipalities and how they can rectify those issues. Again, we had a lot of towns brought up culverts. That's just something common. They go out of date. They haven't been updated in years and they're expensive to repair. But we had other concerns come up, erosion concerns. We had concerns of overdevelopment and maybe certain water plants or sewage plants not being the correct size. So that was something they brought up that maybe potentially in the future is something we could work together and find, this vast amount of funding to help correct that, whether it's, correcting the stream and getting it further away from the bank that's eroding, or totally moving it, whatever it may be. So we have a whole range of projects. And if we do want to view that later on in the presentation, I can pull that up. But as I said, it's a forever ongoing list that we hope never just, stays stale and doesn't move. So from all of those meetings, we got into writing the actual draft. The first picture I wanted to show was our in-person meetings that we had, our in-person public meetings, because without the public input, we would not be where we are with this plan. This plan, as Jeff said earlier, as I stated, it really relied on the public to give us all that information, because who knows their area better than the people who live there? Somebody who travels a road for every single season, travels it in heavy rains, whatever it may be. They know that location and they know that it floods. Maybe they know that it's a dangerous situation because there's only one inlet and it floods. So people who live at the end of that road, maybe an emergency situation, might not be able to get the proper help that they need. So without the public, we really could not have made this. So these pictures right here were from our mapping session. As you could see, these were the big maps and you could see some of the stickers. And then these 3 were from our SWOT analysis meeting. As you can see, I believe that one's strengths and that one's opportunities. You could see over here, we had a bunch laid out right there. And it was great. We had tons of people collaborating and speaking together. And hey, I didn't know that you also knew that was an issue. So it was really great to see community members come together and give us this vital information. So to write the draft, really, we needed the public. The public came through for us and gave us some really great data that we were able to use. So the plan components, what is the Neversink Watershed Management Plan made up of? There are 16 chapters. We have acknowledgements, authors and steering committee members, glossary, executive summary, introduction, background, vision statement, planning process, watershed characterization, open space, watershed-wide goals, strategies, and actions, cross-program strategies, implementation plan, the O&W rare lines and stream management. Then we have our attachments and our works cited. So really about 14 chapters, but a little extra there at the end. And I'm going to give just a brief overview of most of these chapters, just to give you an idea of what each contains. This document is 104 pages, so it'd be quite a bit to go through page by page. But I will break these down a little bit more to give you an idea of what each chapter contains. So first, our authors and steering committee members. I won't go through every single individual person, but as you can see, we had a variety of individuals that had helped out on this project. Anybody from our plan writers, the partners, FUDR, Trout Unlimited, Sullivan County. We had individuals from the Fisheries Department, Orange County Land Trust, Delaware River Basin Commission. So we really tried to pull in experts from all over the watershed that would have some good information to give us, or just be good eyes to reread the sections and give us some edits. As I said, we really wanted to get some experts that had a keen eye for these issues and bring them to our attention. So again, without the authors and steering committee members, would have been a daunting task, but we had quite a bit of input that was wonderful. All right, so background, I already did give you background, but I'll just briefly go over it. This chapter just explains, how in 2022, Sullivan County was awarded the federal grant, the partners that they reached out to work on this plan with them, describes how it's a non-regulatory guidance document, really just a blueprint, in hopes that people will be able to reference this document for future projects or whatever it may be, future concerns. We completed our public outreach meetings, was that series, met with watershed municipalities, and the development of a draft based off of all of those meetings. So that's kind of what the background covers, that background chapter. The next big chapter is the vision statement. And I will, if I can move me out of the way, I will read the vision statement for you. The vision statement that we came up with based off of, again, the data that we collected from our in-person meetings was the Neversink watershed will support vibrant communities with clean water for humans and wildlife. The watershed will be resilient to flooding, support high quality habitat for wildlife, and have ample river access and open space for the public to enjoy. Again, we collected all of this information from our in-person meetings. We came up with this vision statement. Steve Schwartz had a huge part of that. So thank you so much, Stephen. And from there, we had steering committee meetings to make sure this made sense, to make sure, this is the vision that we were trying to go for. And on top of that, we also had a public meeting. So we wanted to make sure that the people, were seeing what they wanted to see for the vision, the future. So again, the public had a huge part of the vision statement in developing this. The next is watershed characterizations. And if you are looking at the plan, you will notice this is really the meat of the plan. There's tons and tons of information in this chapter here. Trout Unlimited did all the data collection, tons of data collection, wrote majority of these chapters for us, gave us some great pictures. But what this chapter will go over is it's localized information on plans that are already out there or programs that are already out there. Information on infrastructure, information on flooding impacts or historical flooding impacts. Just to give you an idea, these are the main topics. We have a watershed overview, just gives you the basic information and location of where the watershed lies within New York. General description of watershed location, just a little bit more in depth. Neversink history goes trying to think all the way back for the date that we start with, but it goes all the way back to when there was indigenous people that were, occupying the land, and how it got turned over, and how, it went into then more commercialized, and how we are where we are today. So just it gives a little bit of history and current history, or current values. The next topic is Neversink Watershed Demographic and Economic Profile. So we collected data from the US Census. And that'll just give you an idea of what type, what types of people live in the area, age ranges, people who are employed, individuals that own homes, all that kind of information. Next would be population density, same, just a little bit more in depth from the demographic and economic profile. Next would be the Neversink River Access and New York State Trout Management Stream Management Plan. That goes into the access sites for fishing, or it could be the access points for hiking, where those public accesses are in the Neversink, and perhaps maybe where we need more. Then we went into physiography and drainage, climate, precipitation, rivers and streams that make up this watershed, the hydrology, wetlands, invasive species. There's a whole section on the invasive species that are found within this watershed. Water quality, geology, soils, land cover, impervious stream temperature impacts, land use, flooding, the wildlife that you can find in the Neversink watershed, the dams that are there, and also road stream crossing infrastructures, or as some people better know them as culverts. Some bridges got brought up, things like that. So to give you an idea of what you might see in this chapter, Trout Unlimited made these beautiful maps for us. We have all sorts of maps throughout the entire chapter. To give you an idea, this one right here is the population density. So it'll show you 3 to 49, which will be your up here. Your Shandaken, Denning, Neversink flows through there. A little bit more population as you get towards central. As you can see, though, the villages and the cities are the ones that have, they're the smallest area land-wise, but yet they have the most people condensed in that area. So we'll give you information like that on the maps. This map shows you, as I was saying, some public access points. So down here you have some public fishing access points. Up here, these are categorized as other access points. So they could be hiking trails that they bring you to that might go along the river or things of that nature. They give you some other things, like if fish within the area are stocked or not stocked, all that kind of good stuff. Over right in the way here. Here it'll give you an idea of the bedrock geology. Again, you could see everything's color coordinated. It gives you an idea of where the rivers are, the Neversink River, the east and west branch, just to give you an idea, to show you what, what town you're in, what village you're in. Here you could see the reservoir down, and it goes all the way through. The invasive species chart. As we all know, the spotter and lanternfly is always on the top of the charts for most states, a lot of states now, especially over in the kind of region that we are in. But it goes through all sorts, and it's not just bugs, it's also plants that are on this, and some very different type, as you could see here too, things that grow on plants. It's all sorts of information. These were just the most common. That's why they got highlighted. It's not to say that these are the only ones that are found within the area. It's just these are the ones that are most common. Knotweed's not on there. I believe that's more of that's a different category of invasive. This is more something, these are more lesser known, but very prominent in the area for invasive species. And then last but not least, these aren't the only ones you will see. There's tons of maps, but this is a very nice visual to give you an idea of how many culverts there are within the area. And Trout Unlimited, along with FUDR, we have a conservation crew in the summer. They went around and within the Neversink watershed, they evaluated 1,100 culverts. Through a process that all individuals were certified. They got their NAC certification, which you could see right here is the North Atlantic Aquatic Connectivity Collaborative. All the individuals received that accreditation, and then they were able to go out and assess these culverts or these road stream crossings with this base information. And they were able to, as you can see here, they were able to classify them, whether they were a significant barrier, all the way down to insignificant, and some were unassessed. As I said, they did 1,100, so they did as many as they could. Doesn't mean that those culverts are not going to be assessed, just means right now at the time they weren't able to get to them. But quite a bit of information on the culverts that were assessed. So our next chapter we'll get to is the open space chapter that Natural Lands put together for us. Again, based off of public input, based off of steering committee, municipality meetings, anything that we could provide for them. To give you an idea of what's in this chapter, open space priorities established through public meetings, stakeholder feedback, and results from online surveys, as I said. How water quality and land cover has changed from 2001 to 2019, so almost a 20-year gap there, just to show, where we're heading and where we were. Open space protection and techniques for municipalities. So this section kind of covers just some insight on where municipalities can turn to if they are looking to conserve more space. So for instance, purchasing land outright, some information and steps on how you do that, how a municipality would do that. Also purchasing conservation easements, which for those who aren't familiar with them, a conservation easement limits certain uses of the property. So for instance, if you're worried about overdevelopment, if you can purchase a conservation easement, that's something that you can write in for that land, that it cannot be developed, or there's different avenues, but that's just one that you can go for. The other thing is land use regulations techniques for municipalities as well. So again, preserving natural vegetation and waterways, some insight on that. Some insight on woodland conservation and vegetation buffers along different waterways. So trees, shrubs, anything like that gives a little bit of insight. Our next chapter brings us to watershed-wide goals, strategies, and actions. We came up, based off of the input we got and data collected, we came up with 5 main goals. The first goal, protect and restore water quality. The second, to protect and improve habitat. The third, strengthen climate resiliency and flood mitigation measures. Fourth, protect important open spaces. And fifth, maximize recreational opportunities. So with each of these goals, in the chapter, you will see strategies and actions that follow. And they are specific to each goal. Some do repeat themselves because, to be honest, it's difficult, to maximize recreational opportunities if you don't have improved, water quality or habitat. So a lot went hand in hand with the strategies and actions. But just to give you an idea, the statements for each, to protect and restore water quality is protect and maintain water quality through projects and programs aimed at improving land and watershed management and reduce pollutants that can impair water quality. Goal number 2, protect and improve habitat. Main statement is to sustain and restore fish and wildlife populations through conservation and restoration of their associated habitats and promote native ecosystem restoration. Third goal, strengthen climate resiliency and flood mitigation measures. Statement for that, protect and maintain water quality through projects and programs aimed at improving land and watershed management and reduce pollutants that can impair water quality. Protect important open spaces. Protecting open spaces in order to protect wildlife, maintain biodiversity, conserve water quality, mitigate flooding, and help purify the air. And our fifth goal, maximize recreational opportunities. That would be to provide recreational opportunities which promote conservation of natural resources and install a stewardship ethic among recreational users. Our next chapter is cross-program strategies. Again, based off of the data and input in meetings with our steering committee members, we came up with 5 of them. The cross-program strategies and Neversink Watershed Management Plan requires strategic actions that will apply to all of the goals and all of the objectives within this plan. The 5 below that we came up with are engaging the public through outreach, education, and citizen involvement to increase capacity and support for coordinated restoration and protection activities in the basin. The second strategy is facilitate strategic planning to maximize adaptive potential of natural systems in changing watershed conditions. Our third strategy, increase scientific capacity to support planning, monitoring, and research activities necessary to carry out coordinated restoration and conservation activities in the basin. The fourth strategy, provide technical assistance and restoration. I'm sorry about that. I'm getting tongue twisted here. Provide technical assistance for restoration and conservation activities. And our fifth strategy is conserve areas of regional significance. So as you can see, they do kind of correlate directly with our goals. Our next chapter is our implementation plan. In the implementation plan, we do speak to the project list that was created not only from the public's input, but also municipality meetings that we conducted. But this chapter really just kind of explains, it shows you those projects, those projects that we came up with in a nice Excel sheet. And it also discusses what we focused on for water resource management needs. As I said earlier, the people that we had met with, supervisors, town mayors, local highway departments, landowners, even just people that, might just have a second home in the area, but they still are concerned. We also met with hunters and anglers and spoke to all those individuals at our public meetings. And from that, just to give you an idea of some common problems, I did state a few of them, like the culverts. But to give you another idea, aging infrastructures. So outdated facilities that might need to be either rebuilt or just improved. Roadways, culverts is a big one. Bridges was also a big one. We also heard a lot about erosion, accelerated sedimentation, stream bank failures. Development pressure was another big one that we had heard from, and also flooding concerns. And a lot of times the flooding concerns directly correlated to aging infrastructure or things like that. So we do have the project list. As I said, it is an ongoing list. We hope people will write into us and say, hey, I live in Deer Park and this didn't show up. Or, hey, I live in Fallsburg and I know this is an issue and for whatever reason, it didn't make it to the list. So our next chapter was the O&W rail lines and stream management. This is the last chapter out of the 14 main chapters. But this chapter was connecting. This chapter explains the O&W rail trail and the connections that they want to make. They want to add in 50 plus miles of trail, and then also have another 10-mile spur, I believe. And if Heather's with us, she might not be able to answer, but it goes over what's going to be added. So it's essentially 60 plus miles of trail. The next image I have will actually show you where it's going to be added and what's already in existence. And the reason for expanding this is, the trail will provide an opportunity for people to be able to obviously just enjoy nature and enjoy being able to exercise out in nature. It will be accessible by all individuals. So anybody will be able to, ride a bike or take a stroll, or if they use a wheelchair or anything of that nature, they will be able to, enjoy this trail. Not only does it allow individuals to, enjoy nature and go on a nice little stroll through along the stream, but it also will connect individuals to potential jobs. They might not have a car, or there might not be public transportation, but they might be able to, get to one area or location because they can, take the trail now that it's connected and they have a safe way to travel to and from work. It also helps to restore the health of the watershed as well. I thought it was interesting, and I pulled some just quick little tidbits from this chapter. Again, I said, it'll connect vulnerable communities to jobs, goods, and services, including public transit. So maybe you have to take this trail in order to get to an area, bus station, anything like that. I thought this was interesting. The standard for trail development calls for pervious surfacing using crushed stone compacted to support road bicycles and strollers. But pervious, so it is to minimize stormwater runoff and erosion. So really speaking to a green infrastructure here. The trail corridor will be primarily shaded, lots of trees along the way, so it'll provide heat mitigation to the watershed, which not only for individuals is that a nice relief, but also for the water itself. Hopefully help lessen algal blooms if they exist, anything like that. I thought this was incredibly interesting to help with a green thumb here. Research has been initiated into the use of goats rather than using lawnmowers wherever that's needed in order to cut the grass. I thought that was interesting. As we all know, most mowers require gas, which has emissions. Some are electric, but you still have to be able to plug them in and charge them, and then there's a battery. So I thought that was really interesting, an interesting approach to kind of organically, you know, organically maintain the landscape. And as well with this chapter also goes over the spread of invasive species and kind of what they're doing to mitigate that. Different projects that they're looking into, different ways to get rid of a knotweed, the lanternfly, anything like that. This chapter will go over. So as I said, this map here is going to show you, we'll start up here, where the Sullivan O&W Rail Trail already exists. So the already exists is in the red, and you could see between this red, there's some pretty significant areas where there's nothing. Where there's nothing is where the trail will be added. So right in here, they basically run with roadways. So there's like a sidewalk, a crosswalk on the side for people to reconnect to the trail. This is the biggest portion here, but we'll connect all of this running down into Orange County. So it just gives you an idea of what will be added, what already exists. Which brings us to, this isn't our next chapter, but it is a massive portion of this plan. As we said, as we keep saying, without the public input and without the knowledge of local stakeholders, this plan wouldn't be what it is. So like we have the Friends of the Upper Delaware River, we would love for this plan to eventually kind of birth this group, the Friends of the Neversink Watershed, or something of that nature. We would like it to be an organization that's run by local stakeholders who will take over the Neversink Watershed Management Plan and advocate, whether it's advocating for implementation of projects that need to be completed or new projects or whatever it may be. Jeff, I don't know if you wanted to speak any on this.
Yeah, I could jump in here, Julian. So this is, all this stuff that Jillian just went over is going to require dedicated, energetic, passionate people to make happen. And ideally, or one of the best ways to do this is to have a group of leaders who have come together, who have an extra special amount of time and energy to organize themselves into some sort of group, maybe called something like the Friends of the Neversink Watershed. So they're meeting all the time and they're talking all the time and they're establishing relationships and they're establishing profile in the watershed and eventually establishing influence over the goal, and advancing the goals and objectives of this plan. I think without this, it's going to be real difficult to activate and make this plan come alive. So this is, as Jillian said, a really, really super important part of this whole operation here. And if you can see here on the screen, if you folks have taken your time this evening to show up to this meeting, many of you have been to lots of these meetings Jillian went over.
Oh, yes.
And can you think of people like maybe yourself or others who could form the sort of a core group that might get started on this? And we can help with this, but it's not something that we can, our plates are full and we're the Friends of the Upper Delaware River Watershed and we do all kinds of things, and so does Trout Unlimited. And what we need is people power here. So if you are interested in helping this happen or know somebody who might be, please contact us. And we've had a couple preliminary conversations with some of the people that showed an extra special amount of passion in the last 2 years as we've been putting this together. So we've had a couple conversations, but it's really going to take somebody who can not, one or two or three or four people who can really get it off the launch pad. So does anybody on the call have any thoughts on this right now? Either yourself or you might know others. Do you think this is a good idea? If so, any ideas of how to get it started? We're all ears here.
Just make sure to take yourselves off of mute if you are, because we won't know if you're saying something.
That was incredible, Jillian.
We still
Okay,
got a
so-
few more slides. I'm not done yet.
Okay.
No, I'm
Um,
joking.
Hearing nothing, if you want to send us written comments or give us a call, that's fine too. But please know that this is something we we have some obligations in the grant in this regard, and we also just feel like it's, without doing this part, or at least trying to get it started, that we haven't really completed the whole task here. So,
And like-
okay.
And like Jeff said, it would be something that we would absolutely, provide assistance in the beginning. We would be available for questions. But it's really those local individuals that have the most knowledge of the area, that we would love to see be interested in the Friends of the, Neversink Watershed. And like Jeff said, feel free. I have our email there, the info@fudr.org. That would probably be the best email, just because there's a few of us that see that. So, you wouldn't be waiting for one person to potentially respond to you. You would definitely get a response sooner rather than later if you email there. So from that, I'll bring you to our next steps, kind of our finalized closing out steps here for the plan. So there is tonight's meeting. Once we wrap this meeting up, I will be giving the opportunity for comments. If you want to type something down, or leave it in the chat here, that's fine as well. But any kind of input from tonight's meeting, we will go back, read that input and see where it fits in the plan, see if we can fit that in there, if it's appropriate. The last day to accept public comments will be this Friday on the 17th. This plan has been available online for, I want to say, almost a month now. Even if you missed that deadline and you still want to, get your information to us, please feel free to reach out. But that is our hopes is by the end of this month, by the 31st, that we will have a plan that will be available for individuals, a completed plan where we're not editing it anymore, but a completed plan that will be available for individuals to view and read through. So if you are looking to leave comments and you do want to view the plan, if you visit right here, www.fudorg.com or www.fudorg. Oh my goodness, I am in a tongue twister right now. All right. Let's try this one more time, and if I don't get it, Molly, I'm gonna have you say it. If you visit www.fudr.org/Neversink WMP, that will bring you right to our Neversink page. And there is a button right up top that says View the Neversink Watershed Management Plan Draft. You can click that and the whole thing will be available for you. I will say, if you are trying to view it from your phone, certain attachments might not open because they are large attachments. The plan might not open. As I said, it's 104 pages. So just be wary of that. If you do try to access it from your phone, you might have some difficulties, just because it is a larger plan. And then from there, you'll see in the top of the toolbar, there's like a little square with a plus sign, and you'll be able to leave a comment on a section. You can highlight things and leave a comment that way. All sorts of things. If you can't figure it out, worst case, please feel free to email us at that info@fudr.org. And we'll be able to get that information kind of input into the plan. So with that, I want to say thank you so much for your time. I want to leave it open to see if we have any comments, questions, concerns. I'll take the screen off so we can see everybody.
Julian, there's a comment about the spelling of the Bashakil. Do you Bashakil people, maybe this is just for me, but I remember
Yes.
long and tortured conversations about how this word gets spelled. Can we have the final determination from those of you who are in the Bashakil?
So I can give a little background how we ended up there. One is pertaining to the wetlands, the wetlands of it, and the other one is referring to, I believe, the river of it. I think that's what we left on, but
John
experts?
just weighed in on the chat, and so
Yeah, I think we followed the model that DEC uses,
Mhm.
which is what Jillian said. The wetland has one name and the river has another, and it is confusing. And they're used interchangeably in many places, but
okay.
Yes,
maybe
yeah.
Tracy remembers also. But that was my memory, was that we tried to match how DEC does it, try to be somewhat consistent and not invent our own thing, but it's definitely that confused us as well.
John, when you're saying Bashik Hill, are you referring to the river and the wetland as one? Yes, okay. Yeah. So when you say, Molly, when you say that DEC, were we looking at the maps?
I think we were looking at the different DEC web pages to figure that out.
Yeah.
This
Yeah,
was a while ago that we did that.
And that was at one of our most recent steering committee meetings too. We also were discussing that when we reviewed the plan. So there's been a lot of discussion around Bashik Hill.
Molly and Tracy, maybe Darcy has a comment there. Do you have any thoughts on that? Looks like a good suggestion. About BOCES and school groups and projects.
Yeah, I was just replying, typing over here, but we do volunteer events when we can for things like tree plantings and invasive species removal. We also have a summer crew that's been out. They spent one summer in the Neversink that Jillian mentioned, where they inventoried 1,100 culverts. So we definitely try to do that when we can. So a lot of these projects will actually require, like heavy equipment and things like that. So those are the ones where we need to apply for grant funding so we can put them out to bid. But smaller things, we definitely are totally on board with that when we can. So we agree with your idea.
Well, okay, if there is nothing else here, thank you again to everybody who participated and helped us write and helped us review, showed up at the meetings, all necessary stuff to get where we are today. And as Jillian, she outlined the final steps here, so you got a little more time to make some more comments. And keep in mind our goal of forming the Friends of the Neversink, and if you have any thoughts on that, please send them our way. And that's all that I have. Thank you, Jillian, for getting us through a 104-page document in about an hour. Appreciate
Hey, we
that.
still have 20 minutes. I'm hoping, it's
Yeah,
nice.
we have to, anybody have any, you can take yourself off mute, and if you have any thoughts, questions, or comments, you can do that now.
Just want to thank all you folks for all your work.
Thank you, Wayne.
Great job.
Thank you for being there all along the way. And thanks, Sam, for us.
We'll do that.
And if there's nothing else, Molly, Tracy, got anything?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
All right, well, we can adjourn. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
very
everyone.
much.
Have a
Enjoy
nice
your
evening.
20 minutes.
Good night.
Thanks
Good
for all
night.
your
Have a
work.
good night. Thank you. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you for all your effort.
Thank you. Thank you.